Oh, great. Okay, well, I have lots of resources. So this is something I am like incredibly passionate about because, and I'll just be forthcoming, I am not pro birth control. Not because I don't believe that people should have like power not to get pregnant. I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. I don't like what it does to women. And I don't know if you guys know this fun fact, but they did birth control for men and they did a 14-day trial of it. And it was discontinued because of how atrocious the side effects were. Daddy, where's my husband? Dr. Vin! Go be with Daddy. He's in the building room. But because of that, those same side effects that those men went through are the exact same side effects that women go through on the pill or on an IUD or on that. And so that infuriates me. So I'm like super passionate about this topic. I'm also super passionate about teenagers' cycles. And I really feel like teenagers' cycles have gotten worse and worse and worse because of the endocrine disruption that's in our products, because of the fact that there's birth control in our water. Like there's just so much working against our teens. And then also our period is like this terrible thing. It's like this horrible thing that happens to you. It's an inconvenience. It's a weight on the shoulders. Whereas 150 years ago, when you got your period, it was this thing that was celebrated. Like you're finally a woman. Like this means that you get to come into the upper echelon. There's like secrets that you know now. Like literally it was this rite of passage. So the way that men had a rite of passage when they'd like go alone in the woods and had to come back with like a dead animal. Us as a women, there's a really cool book by Anita Diamant. It's called The Red Tent, and it's a fiction story, but it's based on the fact that in the Middle East, when women bled, they went into this red tent, and they had 5 to 7 days off because no one could be around them because they were unclean, and they were like, this is awesome. And they would go into this tent, and they would just be together, and they would talk, and they would connect, and they would rest, and they would be... And the young girls who hadn't menstruated yet would serve them, and the women who stopped menstruating would still take care of the men. But because everyone was in this season, they had their cycle pretty much together, because that's how women's cycles sync. And so there would be this time that they got to prepare, but also step away and just be a woman together. And so really beautiful way to like look at our period. And I just saw a reel the other day, and this woman was talking about this very phenomenon. She's like, why don't we do this? Yeah. Like, why when we get our period and all of our girlfriends are synced up, why aren't we in a hotel together? Just watching our shows.
They like got a hotel room and just a couple bottles of wine and some popcorn and watch movies. And
yeah.
Sounds
yeah, sounds joyous. And that's why I also think that why women really love the get together and talk, or even if we all got together, we'd probably end up on our phones or something. Back in the day, we'd end up embroidering or reading from a book, but we'd all be in the same room together and be like, you know what I was thinking? And everyone would stop and be like, yeah, and then they would go back to whatever their self-entertainment was. But that's what ladies did sitting around that weren't like in the service industry, like servants. But the whole stigma around the period, the whole like sneaking tampons and pads in our sleeves so nobody has to see that we're on our period. It was prevalent when I was a girl, and I was born in 1984, so I grew up in the 90s. But I came from a family that didn't have a talk with me about it. Mm-hmm. My mom was a chiropractor. We didn't talk about it. Like,
I didn't know OBGYN, and we did not talk about it. I woke up one day and I had the American Girl like period book on my bed, and that was it.
Yeah, I got the Girl Scouts taught me about my period. I never got a birds and the bees talk. And you know, reflecting on my life and what I know now with the children that I have, please God, all have a birds and bees talk with your kid. They make illustrated books for it now. They make books for parents to like work through their stuff to talk about it now. They have stuff about pornography. Please talk to your children about their penis, their vagina, and sex, procreation. I'm off my soapbox. But this whole stigma, and it's this negative thing, and so now we have a perception that this is the worst thing that could ever happen to you. Then we go into an area where it's not okay to talk about it, but it's starting to be. Women are starting to raise sons who are like, oh, you're on your period, like, can I support you? Like, I have sisters, like, I know what to do. And it's not this thing where men can't go to the store and buy tampons anymore, right? But we're still seeing these reels where like, I got a man who will go and buy me tampons. And you're like, is this really still happening? Like, are we really still celebrating this? And it's just like, yeah, everyone should. Like, if I ask my husband to go buy me pads, the only thing he's overwhelmed by is the choices.
My husband saw the light and regular, but it was L and R, and he's like, left and right.
It's a whole world. But here, the other thing that's crazy, and my husband pointed this out when we were at Target, there's an entire aisle of feminine products, right? And there is a sign over the top with a green circle that says clean over one section. Because every other section has fragrances and microplastics and nasty stuff and titanium dioxide and everything. So you go to Target and you will see clean, and under that will be the organic cotton and the chemical free and the chlorine free and all these different things that are happening underneath. Was it my husband, my son?
I don't think so.
He's near the sad. He's near the. Oh, his mom's on the phone. Every kid who was here yesterday waited until their person was on the phone and then lost their minds. And I was like, they're doing this on purpose. Get off your phone. My kids do the same thing, but it's also to see. It's like very interesting to see. But also when I like see a mom who's like really not okay, and she's here and she's just like, I'm holding onto this phone for like dear life, and I'm like, I'll play with your kid. Like, I see you, ma'am. Like, I know where you're at. I've been there. Yesterday, my kids made me food for 45 minutes straight. They're like, it's your birthday. We're gonna make you a cake. And then it was Vincent's birthday, and then it was Karen's birthday, and then it was Honora's birthday, and we just did it. And I was like, I am so done playing kitchen. But we did it. Long story longer, I think it's crazy that there is a clean sign above feminine products. And then there's the whole movement where people are like, I'm going to put this cup in. I'm going to use these different tampons. I'm going to do all this stuff. Now, physiologically, ladies, again, this is my personal opinion, blood's supposed to come out. So these devices that hold it in, the tampon, the cup, I don't, in my head, people are like, oh, it's uncomfortable, or I don't feel this, or you get toxic shock syndrome, or you can get sick, or like whatever it is, or I have bacterial vaginosis, or inflammatory. I'm like, I think it's just supposed to come out, right? So I'm a pro pad girl, and there's all these people who are like, I will never do a pad. Pads are gross. Then there's the whole movement to period underwear. Now, if you use period underwear, there's only 2 companies that make it organic. Other than that, you're just pretty much putting microplastics on your vagina. Again, I thought about you as I was prepping this top. There's a lot of PFAs in plastic clothes. So I tell this to everybody, your underwear should be cotton for your husband and you. It's good for your reproduction. There are people, when they stop using tampons, they stop having cramps during their cycle. They stop having clots and stuff. So there's like a lot of reactions to that. But anyway, there's my PSA for the period. But we're going to talk about this. There are so many books, and they're all pink or purple. Yeah. Yes. So taking charge of your fertility is this one. This is like a Bible, okay? There is so much information in here. If you don't enjoy reading and you don't like learning like textbooks, this is not for you. Okay.
It is textbook, but it's so mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is so awesome. But if you're not the textbook person, I am not. This is the book for you. So I'm telling you right now, I mean, I love this woman. I think Lisa Henderson-Jack did such a good job. She has a podcast called Fertility Friday. It comes out every Friday. It is usually 45 minutes to an hour and a half long, which for me personally is too long of a podcast, but if you got a long road and you like the topic, go for it, girl. But this is the easiest book of all of these books that I read. This is the easiest book to read. It is simple. It is interesting. It has stories in it, like of women. So this is a very good book. And if anyone says, I want to learn about my cycle, this is the book that I recommend. This is awesome if you would like to get a master's degree in your fertility. Or you have any sort of science background, because there will be things in here that you understand. This is really great. And this lady who wrote the Period Repair Manual, so this is more like, what is wrong with me? Like, here are my symptoms. What can I do? So this is kind of more like a cookbook for your period. And she did the intro to this book. See, they're all friends. These women that are doing this. And all of these women, everyone who wrote this book, also the Woman Code, this goes even into more like your endocrine function, your thyroid, your blood sugar and stuff like that. So this is just talks about like we are a different person every week of the month. Like you have a spring, summer, winter, and fall and winter. And so like honoring that. There's a lot of people that are coming out right now that say you don't have to change your workout or your life due to your cycle like you can. And I'll tell you, you 100% don't have to honor the seasons of your cycle. But when you do, things start to make a lot more sense. For those people online, there's about 35 kids under the age of 2 here today. It's very exciting. If it keeps getting this busy, we might move into a room. But if it's too loud, sorry. And then if anyone is watching this or anyone is curious, this book, It Starts with the Eggs, is a book that is directed towards people who are going to do IVF. But all of it is valid knowledge for improving your egg health, period. And egg quality is what they say they test in the IVF clinics, but they're just really testing quantity and what it looks like is good, but there's no actual test to see like how good is an egg, like DNA wise, unless you take the egg and then you destroy it. Same thing with sperm, but that's another talk. I love how many children are here. So when we're talking about our cycle, most of the time people had a terrible cycle in their teenage years. They went to an OBGYN and that OBGYN gave them the slap of birth control and was like, oh, honey, that sounds terrible. Don't deal with it. And then what we're told as women is that that is a cool and acceptable process and nothing is negative is going to happen to you. Except that your bleed is not a bleed. It's a pill bleed. It's not a menstruation. And we're suppressing ovulation. And we've talked about before in this group that every time you ovulate, it is a $20,000 deposit in your health bank account. And when you go to have a baby, you go to the bank and you need to withdraw $2 million. And so if we've missed 12 months every year of ovulating for 10 years, we are short on cash. And so we're seeing this epidemic of women who have difficulty conceiving or have a lot of issues with their period when they get off the pill. And what we're doing is we're going to the bank and we have no money to withdraw. Or we have 1.8 million and we needed 2 and the body's like, I'll let you do it, but at a detriment to yourself. And so now I'm going to make you feel like death warmed over while you're pregnant and give you a lot of symptomatology. And so if we are looking at someone, if you are coming in to me to talk to me about your cycle and you say, I had really terrible cycles, I've been on birth control for the majority of my youth, I did get pregnant easily, right, after I got off the pill, but I feel insane. Like I feel completely depleted, I feel completely worn out, I don't know how I feel like I'm probably more exhausted than other people. Or they'll say to me, I had terrible postpartum anxiety or depression or terrible postpartum rage. Those are indicators to me that the woman who conceived started off short. So if you think about your body as like a series of like tubs you have to fill, like you have your minerals, you have your vitamins, you have your fats, you have your muscles, like you have all these different things. And if we come in with lower amounts, the baby's gonna take everything. The baby will take everything no matter what. Your body is gonna have a really rough time if you have a bad placenta. I shouldn't say bad. Bad's the wrong word. A weaker placenta, which is your husband's fault. At me if you want. But a lot of morning sickness and early discomfort is the body going, wow, this placenta's not great. I should probably try to get rid of it. And so we have horrible vomiting, horrible, like we're not okay. Then the baby's, God's ordained this baby to live, so the baby is coming, right? Get it, Evelyn. Evelyn, I really like how many milestones you do at this group. It's awesome. She crawled the first time here. She just stood up and walked for the first time. Come to the Enchanted Cottage, everybody. Your kid can too. Evelyn, would you like to do a commercial? And so when we are looking at this, the body tells us. So the title of that book is The Fifth Vital Sign, because when we do vital signs, what are we doing? We're doing our pulse, we're doing our respiration rate, we're doing our blood pressure. We're looking at these things and we're like, if these things are okay, we are okay. And if our cycle is not good, it is a vital sign that says, this is not okay. Like, you are not okay, and I'm trying to tell you something. So a couple of quick things. If you have brown blood at the beginning or end of your period, or it is shorter in length, like it's a 2 or 3 dayer, traditionally that means that we have a low progesterone. Now, progesterone is made by the area that the egg is released from. So when you release the egg every month and you alternate ovaries, this is another fun fact I like to tell everyone. 1 month is righty, 1 month is lefty.
So it is left and right.
Yes. Maybe the tampons change based on that. Also, usually people have an ornery ovary. So like my righty, my period is harder when I have that. Like, this is a rougher time. When I have this side, it's the easiest period ever. I'm like, oh, that's when I ruin my underwear, where I'm like, oh, I'm having my period? Like, oh my goodness. Hi guys. Hey Key. And so you alternate. So when an egg releases and it goes down the fallopian tube, guys, again, I'm just going to give you so many fun facts about your body today. Your fallopian tube is just the width of 2 hairs. Does that blow your mind? And when people are like, oh, I have a blocked tube, or I have torsion on my tube, or whatever, like, what has to happen in the body for that to happen? Because you have no wasted space in your body. There's fluid and tissue and everything everywhere. And so, like, there's no spot in your body where there's, like, open space. Like, it doesn't exist. And so, like, the uterus and the fallopian tubes and the ovaries are so perfectly, like, sustained in this with your broad ligament and all these different things that just hold it in the right place to keep those guys good. So if you had torsion on an ovary, or if you had a blocked tube, there's something very specifically that has happened that messed this area up, that your body has the confidence to have it be 2 hairs width for this tiny little egg cell to come down and find this even tinier little sperm cell to come together and have a baby. Or for that egg to come down and you to be like, this is a no play zone and we're going to have a cycle. But ovulation is one of the best things for your body. The other time that you go to withdraw from your female health bank account is when you go into menopause. So right now we have a ton of women who are having horrible transition in the menopause, right? They are miserable. They're hot flashing. They can't sleep at night. They're sweating. They feel out of control. They have ridiculous vaginal dryness, like to the point where it's painful, because it's got to be moist down there, ladies, forever. Not just for intimacy. And a lot of that too is, a lot of that too has to be because they chose to be on birth control either after they were done having kids. That's a lot of the generation that's going through this now. Or they were on the birth control for the season before they had kids. They had 2 kids. It was really rough. They decided they didn't want any more kids, and they went back on birth control. Then a lot of women who go on birth control after, they're like, wow, hormonal birth control really messed me up, or I had terrible depression when I was on it. One of the things about birth control is it changes who you're attracted to. So if you fall in love with someone on birth control, yes.
My type is so different.
Yeah.
Because I was on birth control from 14 to 21, and then I read that book and I got on birth control. So sometimes people will meet someone on birth control, get married, have a kid, and then not go back on birth control and be like, I don't like you. And it's chemically, they are pheromonally attracted to a different kind of person on birth control. Now, does it work out for people? Yes, there's hope. But if you're feeling like real weird about it, you truly fell in love with someone off, like, not yourself. So it's wild. It's wild what this does to women and how everyone accepts it. And they're just like, oh, you have PCOS? There's people who are on PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian system, which is a metabolic disorder, which is a syndrome, which is not a disease. You do not have it forever. You can get out of it. Like PCOS people are like, I have PCOS. I'm like, you have PCOS right now? You don't have to have PCOS forever. Or they'll be like, I have endometriosis. And I'll be like, you have endometriosis right now? You don't have to, because it's also a metabolic thing. And so, like, there's...
So many people end up with a hysterectomy
Yeah, they say a hysterectomy, or they'll go and they'll do lots of people with endometriosis will get endometriosis surgery, and they'll be like, you have endometriosis tissue everywhere in your abdomen, it's terrible, and it all bleeds and all this stuff. And then once they remove the endometriosis, it causes scar tissue, and the scar tissue blocks their tube. Ladies, I work with people all the time. If you only have one working ovary or one tube, we can still knock you up. It is possible, okay? It's possible. Come hang out. If you have PCOS and you're like, this is really hard, I'm like, it is really hard, but it's a metabolic thing, and you have to work harder. And it's easier and easier to get PCOS the older you are, because your insulin, you need more muscle and more muscle and more muscle as you age to stay healthier, and it's harder for you to get the muscle, and it's harder for you to keep the muscle.
And there's type 1 and type 2 PCOS.
There's 4 types of PCOS. 80% of women, there's 2 major, so you're correct in that. There's the major one that 80% of women have is insulin-resistant PCOS. Get it? You want to read, Cameron? You learn about this for your wife, okay, and your mommy, your future sisters.
He went for the boat.
Yeah. He likes books. He brings books over all the time. Yeah, this is good. There's a lot of good pictures. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so 80% of women with PCOS have insulin-resistant PCOS, which means their insulin is not fluctuating. When your insulin is not fluctuating, your estrogen, your testosterone, your progesterone go wild. If you have a lot of stress, so you have cortisol-induced PCOS, then your cortisol steals from your progesterone. They're the first 3 steps of cortisol and the first 3 steps of progesterone are absolutely identical. So as you are trying to build progesterone, you get really stressed out because you're traveling, or something happened at work, or it's your wedding, or whatever. Your body's going to go, screw progesterone, I need cortisol to survive because there's a tiger outside and I need it. And so then you'll have lower and lower and lower progesterone. Which brings me back to what I was saying before. Ovulation, once you release an egg, it creates this thing called the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum, which is what luteinizing hormone, LH, which is what everybody tests for, right, makes happen. That thing, that corpus luteum, produces 70% of your progesterone. So if you don't ovulate, you don't make progesterone. So that cycle that follows, you may have some brown blood at the beginning or the end, indicating I probably did not ovulate. Now you could also confirm ovulation. The number one way to confirm ovulation is your temperature. So I'll talk a little bit about FAM, or fertility awareness method. There is no other way to make sure that you ovulated, because ovulation test strips test hormones, and your hormones for that can ramp up and then you don't ovulate. The only sign of a true ovulation, outside of like doing ultrasounds of your ovaries like every day until you figure this out, is to see a temperature spike, and then that your body maintains that spike, because progesterone raises your body temperature by a degree, because progesterone is pro-gestation. So we want you to have a baby. I didn't learn that one in chiropractic school. And I had a whole embryology course, and I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. So that's my favorite fun fact also. Progesterone, pro-gestation. We are happy to help you have a child. You're welcome. And so if we've suppressed having a child by not having ovulation, we don't have a lot of progestation in us, and we go to the bank account and we can't withdraw. So that ovulation that you do, and I'll tell you too, girls, you don't ovulate every month. You should, in a like nice, calm area where you lived in the 1800s and you had plenty of food, you ate fresh bison, and the only thing that was scary is when the Indians drove by every once in a while. In our life, travel disrupts your ovulation like nobody's business. So if you're in a trying to conceive time, do not go away to have a honeymoon and knock boots. Like, it's not a good time. Like, this is like, again, if you're having trouble conceiving. There's some people that just like their husband puts their underwear on the end of the bed and they're knocked up. Like, God bless your fertility. But if you're watching this and you're struggling with cycles, or you're struggling with fertility, and you're like, I wonder why this isn't happening, stay home. Stay home, hang out for 4 months, and just don't stress your body out. When I had a good friend who traveled, she traveled on her ovulation week. So she was like really in it, because when you're about to ovulate, you're doing all stuff. I'm about to ovulate. My house is clean. Like I organized books last night. I was on a board meeting at 8 p.m. and I was like, I need to find this green book that my husband was like, I know you know where it is. I was like, I do know where it is. And now that I'm here, why don't I organize all these books by what type they are? And so I went through a whole thing, which is why I also wanted to find the 5th vital sign. So here are all my books. I was like, I'll just bring all these books tomorrow. And so I was looking for this stuff, and I was doing this, and I was like, wow, I got so much accomplished today. And I was at the cottage all day. I was at the cottage all morning. I went to Whole Foods, fed my kids lunch. I was here all night. Then I went to the office after, and then I went home, and I was like, let's clean the kitchen. Let's do this. Let's feed the kids. I was like, I'm ovulating. I am killing it right now. So my friend was presenting at this chiropractic conference, and she was ovulating, and she was doing great, but she had to travel 2 time zones. She was really stressed the first time she ever presented. So she was super stressed about doing it ever. She did not ovulate. She was like, oh, I must have missed it. Because sometimes you'll skip it if you're super stressed. She's like, I must have missed it. So she goes back home. This woman has 4 children, 2 of which are twins. And she's doing life, whatever. She ovulates on day 36, y'all. 36 of her cycle. Why? Because she was so stressed about prepping for this talk, traveling for this talk, coming back to her robust 4 girls that she has. And she ovulated after she was like, oh, I'm sure I didn't ovulate. So she was intimate with her husband, and they conceived on day 36 of the cycle.
So it's not that she missed it, it just got pushed back.
It got pushed back.
Is that more common than like missing an ovulation?
I think so, if you are healthy. So you also need to have 22% body fat to ovulate. So everyone who's like really like, oh, I want to have 10% body fat or 12% body fat. That's why most bodybuilding women, like the ones who like cut it all up, they don't have a cycle. That's why gymnasts don't have a cycle. So they have so much muscle, they're lowering their body fat percentage that their body's like, I don't think I'm going to do this. Now people are going to at me here and they'll be like, I'm so thin, I don't have that. Like, yeah, okay, you're a unicorn. I'm very happy for you. Most women need 22% body fat to conceive and have a healthy, sustained pregnancy that their baby feels safe to go. And the other thing is that when you want to conceive in a cycle, you need to feel safe and happy. This is also why a lot of people conceive right away when they get married, because you're really happy. Like, there's some people who are like, oh, we're going to get married, but we don't do birth control. Like, there's some holistic hippie people like us. I don't want to do birth control. We're going to wait a couple of years and have a kid. I'm like, okay, how are you doing that? And they're like, oh, well, we're going to do like natural planning. And I'm like, okay, like how do you feel about that? You feel like really confident there? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, so do you use condoms or like, what are you doing abstinence? And they're like, well, we're not doing abstinence, right? Because we're in love and we just got married. And I'm like, we're getting after it. And I'm like, all right. I was like, until you really feel good about this, I would use condoms for 2 weeks every month, because it can vary and things change. Like, I ovulate on day 18 and day 23. And if I went to an OB/GYN, they'd be like, we're going to test you on day 21 for your hormones and see. If you tested me on day 21 for my hormones, it would look like I have no progesterone, I have no LH, because I don't ovulate until later. So I have a woman who's trying to conceive and they want to do this thing, and she did all the IVF stuff, and they were like, okay, we're going to do day 14, and then on day 15 we're going to do the IUI. And I said, I think you should wait till Monday. I said, based on what we've done together, you ovulate later. And so they're like, well, okay, we'll do it. I mean, it's her money, right? I was like, remember, you're the boss. Like, you get to tell those people like this. They went in on Monday, and she had 5 eggs ready to go, and they're like, well, this is maybe too many. And she's like, no, do it, because looks like this woman really wants a kid. And I was like, because we're honoring what her body does, even with pro-ovulation methods and even with all these different things, like, she still is going to ovulate later because that's what her body does. I have some women who have a 26-day cycle. They get pregnant on a 26-day cycle. That's their jam. I have a 31-day cycle. Also, what I've observed, there's no scientific basis on this whatsoever, but my observation so far is that women who have 30, 31, 32-day cycles tend to have their babies at 41 and 42 weeks, because their pregnancy month is 3 or 4 days longer than a 28-day lady. And so if you stack 28-day months, 9-ish months, if a woman has a 26-day cycle, I'll tend to see her go at 38 weeks. And so this is just something I'm observing. I don't have a scientific report. I don't have PubMed backing me up. I'm just letting you know, I work with a lot of knocked up chicks, and this is what I notice. So, and I also think that's why most people go at 41 weeks, because more women I know have a longer cycle now. So that is everything I had prepared, guys. Now I'm ready for questions. Pepper me if I didn't answer anything that you wanted. Yeah, girl.
So you feel like endometriosis and PCOS are metabolic, like what are the first steps to like fix it and how do you get rid of it?
Great. So she asked endometriosis and PCOS, are they metabolic? PCOS is wildly metabolic. Endometriosis, I would say, is 70% metabolic. Okay. I think there's a lot of endocrine disruption and products and stuff that make that worse. And then I also think that women who have been undernourished for a lot of their youth end up with endometriosis. So the first thing that I would do is get off birth control. The second thing that I would do is I would get my minerals and vitamins on a really good regime, and I would include fat. So a lot of my ladies tell me they take a great multivitamin. This is not medical advice. I'm not telling you what to do. If you take a multivitamin, is it food-based? So if it's a synthetic multivitamin, it doesn't digest. So if you went and got your vitamin at Costco, I'm sorry to tell you, it's not good. There's an OBGYN right now on whatever, TikTok or Instagram, and she's all about the Costco prenatal, and she's like, you don't need anything more than this. This is perfect. Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, and like all of these like holistic hippie people are like, is this real? Like, is this real? Like, what is this lady doing? Like, you can bake your supplements in the oven, and if they stay in the same shape, they're not food. Like, they won't work. You want it to disintegrate, you want it to cook, you want it to turn black, you want it to change. Right, but if you could, and there are people who take synthetic vitamins, and I'll take x-rays of them, and I can see all of their vitamins in their colon. Yeah, I'll be like, wow, you take a lot of supplements. They're like, yeah, I take 22 pills every day. I'm like, I can see that. And they're like, yeah, I save a lot of money by getting them at Costco. And I'm like, I see that. The fish oil at Costco, not good. So high quality ingredients are really important. We don't eat, and so there's a lot of supplement haters out there. People say, I can eat my way to a good supplement. I wish that were true. You would have to make all of your own food and eat massive amounts of certain things. Like, to get the same amount of nutrition that one carrot had in the 50s and 60s, you have to eat 24 carrots or something like that today. Because our food is being bred to be big and beautiful, but to do that, you add water to it. And so we only want beautiful things, especially here in America. We don't eat ugly potatoes. We eat perfect red potatoes, right? We don't want a tiny red apple. We want a Honeycrisp that's the size of our face, right? And all of that, there's no increase in nutrition as it gets bigger. There's traditionally usually they are breeding in sugar. So sugar is a big part of this metabolic stuff, and sugar sneaks into our life in every way. There's sugar in pasta sauce, there's sugar in salsa, there's sugar in salad dressings, there's lots of sugar in Chick-fil-A sauce, a lot of sugar. Yeah, high fructose corn syrup, cane juice, like there's a lot of different ways. So the other thing that I would say after finding good food-based supplements, and I can talk to you about it offline if you want, is I would eat breakfast. A giant, savory breakfast. I would advise you to skip dinner before I would say skip breakfast. Women who are in a reproductive age should not skip breakfast. Intermittent fasting is not great for you. If you're struggling with your cycle, or you're struggling to conceive, or whatever, anything that's wrong in this area, if your fifth vital sign is saying, I am not okay, the first thing you should do is not skip breakfast. And in that breakfast, it should be a savory breakfast. It should be protein heavy, between 15 and 30 grams of protein. So you should eat bacon, eggs, sausage, lentils, anything you can. And when you eat, because insulin sensitivity is such a big part of both of those diagnoses, endometriosis and PCOS, is that you're going to eat veggie, protein, carb. And if you don't have a veggie, which potatoes do not count as a vegetable, put them over here. And most vegetables and fruits are carbs. So truly like a fermented veggie, so like pickles, sauerkraut, stuff like that, that's a really good thing to have. Beets are a safe vegetable. Turnips are a safer vegetable, but they start to move towards a carb, especially if you roast them with honey, which a lot of people do. But then you're going to eat protein, and then you can eat your carb. So if you want to have a bacon, egg, and cheese, great. What I would tell you in the beginning is do it on one piece of bread instead of two, and eat it like a open-faced sandwich. Oatmeal is terrible for your glucose. Terrible. So if you're like, I really love oatmeal in the morning, I'd be like, great, have 4 pieces of bacon and then eat your oatmeal. Because I'm not against oatmeal for its fillingness, but you'll see this if you give your kids oatmeal. So we used to only feed my son oatmeal. And he would eat, and then 2 hours later be like, snack, snack, snack. I'm so hungry, because your body processes things. Finn, do you remember the order? Is it fat, protein? Carbs, proteins, fats. So you burn your carbs first, then you start to burn your protein, and then you start to burn your fat. And so you should be able to eat a meal and not feel hungry for 6 hours. And if you feel hungry at 2 hours, it was too carb heavy. If you feel hungry at 4 hours, you didn't have enough protein. And if you can't make it to 6 hours, you're not having enough fat. So avocado toast is an excellent breakfast with some 2 eggs on top if you're not vegetarian. But like nice fat thick sourdough, cover it in butter, put avocados on it, put hot sauce on it. Hot sauce is great for your digestion and increases your stomach acid. That is a phenomenal breakfast. Avocado toast with eggs on top and a piece of bacon. It's a 10 out of 10. Has everything that you need. And I guarantee you, if you ate a fat enough avocado toast, you would not be hungry for a very long time, even with a smaller portion. Lunch should be your biggest meal of the day. And in the winter, you should eat warm food. Like, so seasonally you should eat. Now, in Florida, we're not really cold that often, but in this 4 weeks of freezing, we should be majority eating soups, slow cooker broths and stuff like that. You should have warm breakfast. This is where I'd be like, oatmeal is really good. But if I was going to have oatmeal, I would put heavy whipping cream in it. I wouldn't put, I want fat. I want this, I would put heavy whipping cream in it. I would use maple syrup to sweeten it, not brown sugar, because your body processes that differently, or honey and things like that. And I would try to stack it up. I would put maybe seeds, there's seed cycling that people do with their periods. I've never done that because that's just in my life right now. I don't have that. If I had no children, I probably would. But you could put pumpkin seeds or chia seeds or flax seeds. I would watch flax seeds. So I see a lot of my ladies that are struggling with their cycle. They have flax seeds in everything. They have flax seed bars. They have flax seed smoothies. They have flax seeds are very estrogenic. So if you have estrogen dominance, which is a part of PCOS, then I would not be having a ton of flax seeds. One of the things you can do to get rid of estrogen dominance, because you process estrogen through your bowel movements, so if you're constipated or you don't go to the bathroom every day, you're going to become estrogen dominant, is to eat a raw carrot salad. So you're going to grate a carrot with this. You're going to cover it in apple cider vinegar, which I personally think is the grossest thing that was ever made. And so I literally, if I smell that when I'm pregnant, I will Ralph. I don't throw up when I'm pregnant because my husband does a great job. I cannot do vinegar. But anyway, long story longer. You put a little of that, you sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon on top there, and you eat that, and that will absorb estrogen in your digestive tract, and it will bulk up your stool so that you can process that. So that would be the first 2 things that I would do. And I would analyze every product you put on your skin, because women put somewhere between 100 and 200 chemicals on themselves if they take a shower and get ready in the morning before they walk out the door. If you have Febreze or scented candles in your house, toss it. Literally toss it. That stuff you can't wear perfume or fragrance or have any on your clothes at an IVF clinic, because if you have it on your body and you walk in the room, the eggs and sperm die in the petri dish just by being around you. They have to cover themselves up and they all have to shower with stuff that doesn't have fragrance, because they will ruin their money-making business. Is that not wild, y'all? But we're like, let's light this apple cinnamon candle, Merry Christmas. And I'm like, don't do it. Diffuse some oils. I'm all about it. But also know when you diffuse oils, if you have an air doctor, it's going to go insane, because essential oils are particulates. And so the air doctor finds particulates in the air, and that's when it tells you that the air is bad. So know that. And then people are like, well, if my air doctor's doing that and the essential oils are you shouldn't do essential oils every day, all day, but they're okay in moderation. There's my soapbox for that. Mm-hmm. Are you always doing lavender? Mm-hmm. I think the reason you stopped is because your body was like, that's enough. And then you're like, oh, I want to do this again. And then there's probably going to be a season where you're like, I don't need it tonight. And I would just follow that. Your innate will tell you.
So going back to the breakfast thing,
Mm-hmm.
you said in that order you should eat them.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, what was the order again?
Veggie, protein, carb.
Veggie, protein, carb.
Mm-hmm.
Is that for women only? Or
No. If you want to manage your glucose the best, like not have a glucose spike, that's the best way to eat, period. But now as a man, you can intermittently fast all you want. Men flourish. Testosterone loves an intermittent fast. Testosterone also loves not eating. Like if you were to fast for 3 days, your body's like, let's go. The fun fact, the number one testosterone boosting activity that you can do is chop wood. This is scientifically proven, y'all. So chopping wood. Chopping wood will boost your testosterone. So one of the other types of PCOS is androgen-specific PCOS. This is women who sometimes have an issue making testosterone and estrogen, so they're more testosterone heavy. And you can usually see these women because they have a more masculine appearance. Not that they're men, but that's just easy for them. It was always easy for them to put on muscle. They were very athletically driven, so you can be testosterone heavy. Those women, that one of the things that they need to work on is not doing testosterone enhancing things. Every time I have a woman with this, she loves CrossFit. Loves it. And she's so good at it, and she PRs every time. And because she's in her testosterone, or it's a woman who's in a situation like me where I opened a business and I ran it and I was in charge. Like I had to do a lot of work to get out of my masculine and let my husband take over, which was that's a whole other therapy conversation I could have with y'all. But when he started to take over our business, I got to be more feminine, and that has helped me quite a bit. And so being in your testosterone is a lot. It's a lot. But there's so many different idiosyncrasies that I don't really have like a quick answer for the testosterone thing.
So what about getting your period after you've had a baby? Because I've been loving like over a year now having my period. It's great. I kind of forget about it.
Yeah.
Like when can I expect it to come back? Like given I'm breastfeeding?
Yeah.
Is there like a healthier time for it to come back?
The healthiest time for it to come back is when your body's ready to express that energy. So if you have not gotten it back,
Ovulate too without your period.
you totally can, which is why as your baby starts to sleep more at night, you want to watch that temperature. If you're not ready for baby number 2 or 3, that's when it happens. People are like, I did not plan on this. And I'll be like, your baby started sleeping at night. They started nursing less at night. And they're like, how did you know? I'm like, so for 6 months solidly, and again, this is not for everyone.
That was 2 months postpartum.
Mhm.
I got my cycle.
So that is a stat.
Exactly 6 weeks. Like the minute I stopped like the bleeding from pregnancy was like 2 days later I started my period.
So
Like, on the
that
spot.
says that you guys have a very healthy fertile cycle. So that's a statement of health. So I would give yourself a high five. Yeah. 10 out of 10. But I also don't think there's anything wrong with a woman who takes longer. I have now gotten my cycle back at 10 months with every kid. But in my family, the way that...
Usually before a year.
No. Everybody's different. So it depends on how are you nourishing yourself? How is your baby sleeping? How much is their demand? Like at night, specifically. It's nighttime. If nighttime is crazy time, you're probably still okay. And then the last thing is like mental capacity. So there's an emotional component to it. So there are people who will like either encourage their period back because they want to have, like they need to know it, or they will stress themselves out of getting their period back. Again,
Sorry,
there's
that's period or ovulation?
period.
Okay.
But ovulation comes back whenever she's high and mighty and ready to. So as soon as you've passed 6 months, this is like what most midwives and lactation consultants everybody will say is the guaranteed, like, you can't get pregnant in. Now there are women who get pregnant in that season, so don't at me. But most women can safely breastfeed and have that be their birth control after the first 8 weeks. Yeah. But your next baby could be forever. So, Hope. Hope got it back like this after Juliet. And then after Alex, she was like, where is this? But Alex was more stressful. He was more stressful of a kid for her. And I was like, I think your body's like, I think we can wait a second, Mom. Yeah. Like, I think we need a minute. This guy's a lot.
I period back so fast because my husband was home with me during maternity leave, and that was like the most supported I think I've ever felt. Like,
Yeah, that's
so
so.
it was like it came back so fast, and I really credit a lot because I was always heard too, like if you're breastfeeding, it doesn't come back. And like Tucker was not sleeping through the night. He was up every 4 hours, or not every 2 hours, which was like 4 times a night. So that was stressful, but like my husband was with me for all of it. And I feel like just being so supportive, like I didn't have any postpartum like depression or anxiety. And I'm very prone to depression and anxiety. And that's why I credit all of that to like just.
That is a huge part of this. It's also a huge part of how quality a cycle will be if how cycles were treated in your house as a teenager. So if everybody having a period was like this super negative thing, and maybe your dads and brothers are like, oh God, it's this again, versus like, oh, let's be empathetic. Like, this is a hard time for a woman, like that. Being raised up in that, my brother is an excellent husband. I'm sure he has his problems, and my sister-in-law can say that, but he was raised by 4 women, a mother and 3 sisters. And so his empathy is high. He really relates to women. He knows how to talk to us. He knows when to compliment. He knows when to listen. He's a good man because he was around women. And now my husband, who was raised around all boys, like he has only brothers, and he has a very masculine dominated family. Like there's not a lot of chicks in his family. He's like, what happens? Like we just had a whole thing about like how many holes girls have and what comes out of what hole. And he was like, no, it's this. And I was like, honey, you're a doctor. Like, I don't want to talk about this with you. But we've had a whole lot of discussions about it. He's like, no, that's not it. So, like, we have anatomical things up. But, like, Karen has been like, where does the baby come out? And I'll be like, this is where the baby comes out. I'm telling my 4.5-year-old, she's like, where does the baby come out? Why does it hurt? She has these conversations because we have home birth. And those are things that we talk about. My son is going to know all about this. Like, he is going to understand. And that bleeding is a very healthy thing, and we want it to happen. We want to get our period. It's a very exciting time.
What about like trying to get pregnant? I know there's things on men and women's side to be proactive.
So if you want to get pregnant and you have not gotten your cycle, then you need to track your temperature. It's the number one thing you can do. And if you are in a season where you could get pregnant, but you don't know if you will because you don't know if you've gotten your cycle back, the most important things that you could do that I would say is that your husband should be very healthy. There's this great reel that just came out. I love Instagram. And this guy was like, I feel like if you're going to carry the baby for 9 months, I need to do 9 months of preparation. Like, I should spend 9 months getting to be my healthiest version, my most ripped version. I should sleep. I should eat. I should do all this stuff because I'm in charge of the preeclampsia and preterm birth. I'm in charge of 50% or 60% of the epigenetic expression of my child. Like, so why am I not getting ready? And I was like, I was like, this guy, let's go. Can we have more? But if I feel like once the woman has the baby, if your plans are to grow your family, then about 6 months after you have the baby, if you guys are going to plan on having kids closer together, that boot camp starts for your husband. Because you're not just a sperm donor. You are a vital part, and you are more of the picture than we even are, which is why they always look like you. I'm not bitter. Look at my children. They look like my handsome husband.
What does that list include?
So that's that you're managing your stress, that you're working out, that your testosterone is at a healthy level. Like, I really feel like in this day and age, men don't get to use their physical strength enough, which is why cutting wood is like really good for testosterone, because it's this physical thing. You also accomplish something. It's also providing something for someone else. So men are built to provide and protect. And so if all you're doing is cerebral exhaustion, like you work all up here, it's not enough. Like, that's why men love jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai. They want to watch a fight. The reason that men love sports in general is they want to be behind something that they can fight, because the 2 football teams are fighting each other. The 2 baseball teams are fighting each other. And then you like have the banner of what team you like. That's not every guy, but it's the majority of guys, right? Like ESPN is the theme song of my husband's family. Like, that's what they do, because they all want, like, and if their team beats somebody else's team that's their friend, they'll call each other up and be like, my team beat yours. And you're like, you didn't play. But to them, they're built for battle. And the only battle that we're allowed right now, right, as men, because you don't fight each other for territory, right? There's no, like, that's not happening. And you're not fighting bears and tigers, and you're not hunting every day to, 1, to protect your family, and 2, to provide for it. You're missing out on this, like, thing. And so I would find whatever that is for you. And that's also why a lot of guys love the gym, because they feel like they're doing something to provide and protect. So those would be things that I would say.
Even
And then,
just like lifting weights would count as that,
yes.
like muscle
Yeah,
building.
lifting weights, but challenging. So like there's this thing that my husband's looking into. It's this guy on Instagram called Prepare for Combat. And all he does is train in a way that is like combat ready. So like he's like laying down and standing up with 50-pound sandbags, like if he had to carry somebody. And he's using a mace, like a sword, like all around and all this stuff. Very cool stuff. But it like makes sense. Like that would be more fun to me than going to Planet Fitness and listening to pop music and like pushing things up and down while I share bacteria with a whole bunch of other guys that are usually just standing there taking pictures of themselves with their pump on. You know what I'm saying? Like that doesn't really seem like a testosterone building thing for me. But
Because you've never done it before.
maybe I'm wrong. I don't have testicles. I cannot comment on this.
Nobody goes to Planet Fitness.
Good to know. Nobody goes to Planet. Look, I'm getting. But it's only $10 a month. They're on a budget. And so, well, that's also I think why CrossFit and these like functional F45 and all that stuff has happened, because there's like this thing where people are like, I want to do this and then I want to do this and I want to do it and I'm doing it against other people and it's competitive and all that stuff. And then again, I see the women in that room's testosterone come up. But they love it. They feel really good after they leave. And I'm like, that's cool. It's really good. Like 2 weeks of your cycle. Like, I love that. And there's 2 weeks of your cycle where I'd be like, you should do yoga or watch romantic movies and cry. Like, it's okay. Go bake bread. I think
Adrenaline equal testosterone or no?
no. Like jumping out of a plane.
Just fun stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, but joy I think is really important. So if you seek adrenaline, as long as it is a physical seeking of adrenaline, like so some people get adrenaline from like watching scary movies, or some people get adrenaline from playing a video game.
Like snowboarding or surfing or...
Well, snowboarding and surfing are very athletic. Surfing is one of the best things you can do. And as a chiropractor, posturally and spinally, it's phenomenal. So everybody who surfs has the best curves in their spine. Like because they're always doing this, and they're using so much, and they're looking left and right. Because like surfing is phenomenal. 10 out of 10. And then you're bathing yourself in negative ions. You're getting vitamin D therapy from the thing. I mean, I can't find much wrong outside of shark attacks with surfing. Like I really want my son to be a surfer. Yeah. Other than that,
It's
and that's
such a low chance.
But yeah, it's not a high probability.
You have a higher chance of dying on 3rd Street than you do
Yeah.
from a shark.
That's what I tell people. I mean, people come into my chiropractic office and are like, you could kill me. I'm like, it's really actually more dangerous for you to drive here than it is for me to adjust you. But we can talk about that
Getting
later.
at Starbucks was more dangerous than
Yes,
going to my office.
right? And then people are like, yeah, but I snapped my own neck. I'm like, cool. I just watched a medical doctor be like, no one should snap their neck. You're going to get a stroke. You're going to die of it. And I was like, oh, awesome. And then everyone's like, what about chiropractors? And he, I mean, I could have kissed him. He said, I cannot comment on a profession that's not my own. Thank you, guy. I'm not a medical doctor. People ask me medical doctor stuff all the time. I said, listen, I don't know that. This is what I interpret it personally, but I can't give you advice there. I can't take you off a drug, put you on a drug. I can't recommend any of that stuff. That's not my scope. But I can talk to you about your health because I learned about that in school. Anyway, so for men, I would be the healthiest you've ever been. Like if you were feeling like 100% in your manhood, like you were killing it. Your self-talk is good, what you're reading is good, what you're believing, what you're accomplishing. Like, I also think that there is something to having a group of men that you do something with. Like, whether you do a Bible study or you do a mastermind or you do something with like-minded men. If you are already a dad, like a fatherhood thing. And that's hard because you guys don't like to be, some of you like to be friends. Others don't. I'm married to the others. But to have men don't need a group like women do. Men need like 2 guys that they could go into battle with. They're shield warriors. So like this is something cool that I learned. In that time, they would recruit families to be in war, and the person to your side would be your family. So like you would be next to your brother and your son, and you would lock arms and your shields would make the shield wall. And so you knew that you could not fail because your family members were next to you. Because if you fell, they were vulnerable. And so they specifically stacked men together in family units to be these, and they wouldn't break. And like you would see where they broke was where 2 families met. Because I'm not going to protect this guy, it's not my cousin, more than I'm going to protect this guy. So really fascinating stuff I've learned about men in the last 3 or 4 years of our life. But that's what I would do as a man. As a woman, I would do everything I could to manage my stress. It takes you 120 days to make an egg. So you could be making the egg that you conceive with in the next 4 months if that's on your plan. And so the health that you have this month is going to pay off. So if you started a regime, like you were taking vitamins or doing whatever, it's not going to pay off in your egg generationally for 4 months. So you have to wait to that 5th month to conceive. For men, sperm cycles every 60 to 75 days, so about 2 months.
Wait, but aren't you born with all of your eggs?
No, that's a lie.
Really?
Literally, we're the only mammal that claim is made out of.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you are not born with all of your eggs. Yeah, everybody says that. You know why? Because there's a multi-billion-dollar industry that profits off of that. They also,
Making new eggs.
yes, because they're germ cells. Like they're in our ovaries. Yeah, you can make new eggs.
Because
Wait.
we're talking about egg quality, so I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But the quality of, so with quality of sperm and quality of egg, there really isn't a test without destroying the actual specimen to see how it is. A way that you can test a man how he's doing is you want to test his CRP, so his C-reactive protein. That's an inflamed guy. So the higher that is, the less great his sperm will be. You want to check his ESR, his erythrosedimentation rate, because that's also an inflammation. You want to see his testosterone. You want to see that. You don't just care about amount, motility, and morphology. That's when a man does a sperm test and a thing, they're just like, oh, you passed. 4% of them have to be good for him to pass. I mean, it's just wild to
How do
me.
you test all those other things you just said?
Blood work and a semen analysis. So there's more that you could ask. I mean, I could text you a list of all the things you could ask for. Dr. Leah Gordon actually just made an incredible post about all the things to test for sperm health. Literally yesterday, I saw it. It was really good.
So you mentioned stress with women, but it's the same with men, I'm assuming,
Yes.
too. Stress
Yeah.
is bad.
Well, and the
Well,
thing,
it's stress on the body, not just like mental stress.
yes,
That's what I always have to
but
remind
for
myself.
men, mental stress is more destructive because they don't share it, they stuff it. Like we can all sit here every Thursday and just bitch, right? And we feel good after. And men are very solution oriented. That doesn't help. That's why when you bring them a problem, they're like, well, why don't you just not talk to her anymore? And you're like, no, I don't want that. I just want you to be like, yeah, she sucks. You're great, babe. Like, just encourage me through this. But they're like, just don't talk to her, or like, quit your job. It sounds stupid. Like,
I saw this thing that said that when women vent, they let all their stress out, and when men vent, it works them up more. And I'm like, oh, I totally see that.
yeah. And
Like,
and
my
again,
husband complaining, it just gets louder and louder, and he's more stressed. I'm like, all right.
we had a thing the other day, and like Dr. Vin just kept getting madder and madder. I'm like, listen, let it go. I was like, we are okay. We rented this hotel, and it was supposed to have a kitchen. We were going to save all this money by cooking our food and not doing this stuff. And the oven, we put water on there. It didn't boil for 45 minutes. And then we were like, hey, your stove doesn't work. And the maintenance guy came in. He's like, it turns on. And we're like, we know it turns on, bro. But he had this whole plan. He had all of our meals planned out, all this stuff. And he was irate. I mean, it was just like feeding into it when he was driving all this stuff. I was like, bro, we went and bought a hot plate at Walmart. We're still cooking, like it's okay. But then the Walmart the one we went to didn't have. We had to go to the other Walmart. And I was like, okay, Lord, I don't know what you're trying to teach my husband, but could we stop with the testing right now? He's not doing this too much. But for men, there is some way that you process your feelings and stuff. I get generally physically, like if men punching stuff is really, I mean, my husband's mad. He's like, I just want to put my fist through the wall, and I'm like, gosh, it just causes so many problems. And won't your hand hurt? And he would go chop some wood, like really, it's so good. And if you need wood to chop, we have a lot in our backyard because we
Text him.
we- because we trimmed all of our trees and we were like, leave it. Because we wanted the firewood, because we buy firewood. But then we just spent an exorbitant amount getting our trees trimmed, right? It's like thousands of dollars. And I was like, can you leave that? Because I'm going to pay myself back. It's just like getting new windows, like saves you money in the long run because your air conditioning bill is lower, right? So they say anyway when they sell it to you. But yeah, so I would be more intentional about preparing to conceive than I would have been about preparing my wedding. And the opposite is more so. More people plan their wedding, their graduation, their vacation, and they just get pregnant on a whim. Yeah, your daughter's first birthday. It's a very exciting time.
I've heard for men also, THC can affect their sperm.
Like weed?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, it's terrible.
Yeah.
It makes you dumb, makes them dumb. Yeah. It's definitely a very negative effect on sperm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like again, when the people are trying to conceive, like I'm working with this couple, and he was like, I smoke every night, and I was like, stop. And he was like, I don't know how I'm gonna go to sleep. And now he's like, I'm sleeping 10 hours a night. What am I supposed to do? Like I need to sleep the 5 hours that I used to. I was like, it's interesting where we've arrived. And so but he's detoxing, and he's like so we're working through all these different stuff. Same thing with alcohol. Alcohol is a depressant to anything.
Yeah.
And so there are people who drink to go to sleep, or there are people who drink to unwind, and that suppresses your sperm and your egg health. So in a perfect world, and again, people get crack addicts get pregnant all the time. People are like, how does that happen? Because crack addicts aren't worrying about anything. They have no stress. They're having a good time with anybody that's available. And I say that as a joke, but I have the number one, people, upper middle class people have the hardest time conceiving and the worst cycles. Because we have a lot of stress. But I will also tell you, I've worked with incredibly wealthy people that have stress, and the woman does not work, but she's gone through 9 rounds of IVF, and her body is going crazy because she was on birth control for a long time and all that stuff. So if I could also say anything is that if you have daughters, educate them about their period. Learn about fertility awareness method, which has 3 factors. It's your temperature, your cervical mucus, and your cervix position. I will tell you right now, I don't test my cervix position because I ain't squatting down in the shower, sticking my hand up there and trying to feel around. I don't like getting cervical checks. I also have a very posterior uterus, so I'd have to like fist myself. So I'm not interested.
Can the
So
guy help the woman do that?
you could. I mean, you could. You could probably learn a lot. But your cervix becomes closer as you get to like be ready to receive the sperm.
Front or closer down?
Closer to you. So when you are squatting, you like go up in here and you can palpate it versus it's very hard to palpate when you're not fertile. So cervical position is one. Cervical mucus is the other. There's also a method that's just cervical mucus called the Billings method. You can Google that, look it up. But your cervical mucus should be present for about 5 to 6 days. It should be clear. It's like clear and runny, and then it should be egg white consistency. And what egg white consistency means is you do this and it doesn't break. That is prime time. Why do we care about cervical mucus? Because cervical mucus makes it so that the sperm can live. So I have a lot of women that ovulate, their husband has great sperm, they don't get pregnant because they don't have enough cervical mucus, which is a fats issue. So if you're not having enough fats and you're dehydrated, you will have less cervical mucus. So vaginal dryness is like one of your things that you click off. You need more fats and you're dehydrated. And so when the sperm goes in there, it can live for 5 days. The reason it can live for 5 days is because of cervical mucus. Because other than that, your vagina has a pH of 2 and it is a hostile environment. Sperm goes in there and it's like, die, 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 die. So cervical mucus is like, you can stay for a couple of days, my out-of-town guests. And then where... Yeah, yeah.
It helps like the sperm travel.
Yes. So what's really cool in a microscope, if you look at the consistency of inside your vagina when you are not ovulating and you don't have cervical mucus, it looks like barbed wire on a microscope. And when you have cervical mucus, it looks like ski tracks in the opposite direction. So the sperm rides your cervical mucus up to the cervix where there's these little caves called cervical crypts, which is what makes cervical mucus. And they live there until you ovulate or they die, whichever happens first. But the only time sperm can live inside you is for 5 days, which is why you can only get pregnant 5 days of your cycle, but really you only can get pregnant for 12 to 24 hours of 1 day of the month. So when we were told as kids you could just get pregnant anytime.
Anytime, anywhere. If you look at a boy.
Yeah. So men can knock up 100 women in one night, and women can only get pregnant 1 day of the month, but we medicate ourselves.
I read this thing about cavemen and that, you know, if you leave the cave and go so far away from the cave, you're probably not coming back. And so all the women that live in the cave, that's why their cycles would sink because they have to repopulate their family. And so all the women would be ovulating at the same time. The men could get them all pregnant at the same time. That way if they have to leave and they don't come back, at least their DNA.
How does that work, the cycle syncing thing?
So hormones work on like shifts. And so when you are near your baby, they know that their heart rate links with you, and yeah, so it's a smell, it's a pheromone thing, truly. And so just like the more women you spend time with, the more you will cycle up. But you could spend time with the same women once a week and you wouldn't cycle up. But like in our office, these women who are together 4 days of the week, like 12 hours a day, they be sinking. And so it's hormones and pheromones, but it's the same way that when you ovulate, you see men with more testosterone and you are attracted to them. So a man who has a wider jaw and a full head of hair has a lot of testosterone. Like those are 2 hallmarkers of testosterone. So when you ovulate, you will be like, wow, he's cute. And if you look, you're usually looking at a guy with a beard on a big jaw with beautiful hair. Because those are big things. Those are big things that are attractive. And so you will find more men attractive when you ovulate, and you are more attractive when you ovulate. Whenever I kiss my husband, I'll for no reason, I'll come up to him because we're real busy. He'll get my phone and he'll look at it and he'll be like, are you ovulating? You like me. So it's very interesting.
I know this is definitely the end of the talk, but you were talking
I love you, Megan.
about, you were talking about the Schaefer method the other night. I have no idea what that is. And also there's the baby dust method about trying to get a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
Just always show their freshman age.
Yeah, so the Schaefer protocol is a protocol that I do in the office that Dr. Marsha Schaefer made, and is a preconception protocol, is a health protocol that has a side effect of healthy pregnancy. And so it's a supplement regime, it's eating, movement, rest, empowerment, chiropractic. There's a whole bunch of stuff in it.
Okay.
But I could.
I'm doing most of those things.
You're doing probably most of them except 2.
Okay.
So I'll talk to you about those.
Okay.
And then the baby dust method is the how do I get a girl versus a boy. And so if you want a girl, you would want to be intimate farther away from when you ovulate. So with 3 months of ovulation data, which is not ovulation strips, it's not ovulation strips. Don't rely on those. They can just be a lie. That's all. I brought this for you, by the way. I have 2 copies, so you get one.
But the strips and the temperature are
Together, use many things. Use cervical mucus, use temperature, use strips. But the strips can lead you astray. Because you can ramp up to ovulate more than once in a cycle. Because if you're too stressed to ovulate, you'll try again the next week or 2 weeks later. So what the science says is that X sperm are heavier and they move slower and they live longer. And that the Y sperm are smaller and they swim faster. So the closer to ovulation that you are intimate, the more men are present. So if you are like, I think I'm going to ovulate tomorrow based on this, get freaky. Or just get freaky every day until you ovulate. If you want a girl, you need to be tracking your ovulation. Be like, okay, it's been around day 18, so on day 15, we're going to be intimate, and then not.
Okay.
Because I want all the boys to die off, and I want the girls. So that's the baby dust method, because the male sperm die quicker. Yeah, we have a strange time to show up. But I also believe that God chooses the baby that your family needs. Yeah. I really believe that God chooses a baby that your family needs, and so I think you can try that. But I also think you can pray for the baby that you want. And I told God that I don't think I could handle another girl, and He gave me a Nora. But my prayer was, give us what we need as a family. Give us the person that we need, not just the vagina or the penis. But if and when we adopt, I'm only adopting boys. Because this girl thing is a lot. It's a lot. If anyone would like to borrow these books, you are welcome to. Yeah. Well, the other thing that's cool about having girls is that, one, they're going to be your friend forever. You don't lose them. You lose your sons to the other family.
That old saying.
It's real.
My mom says that all the time.
It's real. And then when you give birth to a daughter, you give birth to your grandchildren too, because her eggs are in there. The germ cells are in there for those eggs. And so when you meet your grandchildren, you will have carried them. And I think that's very beautiful. And your genetic expression will come out in those children, more so his genetic expression. So in Evelyn, your dad's genes are more prevalent even than yours. Isn't that wild? But all of your mitochondria come from your mom.
That's
So
weird. Wait, so you're saying she's more like her grandpa than Jacob?
yes.
Ew.
Yeah. That's how a lot of people feel about that information. But so that's why part of our thing is to be a family team and to want your kids to like be on your family team, believe what you believe, love what you love, encourage what you encourage, and that when they are going to find a mate, that they include you in that process. So if you have 18 summers, not till your kid leaves, but you have 18 summers to convince your kid to stay on your family team, even when they leave your house. So that's how I would look at your life. Not 18 summers because in America we think of it as a springboard. Like we leave our parents and then that's it. And like the way that my husband and I, we want to raise our family biblically, which is we are a part of this family forever and we want to align with that family. And so we want for our family enterprises to be an amazing place for our children to be a part of. And so that's what we are trying to build through our kids. So we are really in this for grandchildren. And people think that's a crazy thought, but that's why we are having kids.
It's not crazy. I think
Yeah.
y'all are doing a great job.
I can't wait to meet my grandkids if Jesus doesn't come back first. If he does, then I don't get them, but it'll be better.